Welcome into Red Raider Recon. I'm Clint Scott. He's Rob Bro.
Today we discuss Arby's.
Roast beef sandwiches.
Not the beef sandwiches, the running backs.
The running back room said goodbye to an all-timer in Tahj Brooks. Not only did he break the career rushing record, he also logged back-to-back 1,500 rushing yard seasons for the first time in school history. All of that production was capped off with a 6th-round selection by Cincinnati. So who will pick up the slack this fall? Well, Brooks could be handing off the keys to a trio of running backs. The two returners are sophomores Jacoby Williams and Cam Dickey. As true freshmen, they had almost identical numbers. Both players had 41 carries, over 200 yards, a rushing and receiving touchdown, and had over a 5-yard per carry average. They also both shined in the Liberty Bowl. The first real look at life without Tahj Brooks came in a loss to Arkansas. The result, however, didn't dampen what Dickey and Williams showed on the field. The pair combined for 238 yards of total offense, with Williams earning visiting offensive player of the game. They're not the only Texas natives looking to take off running in 2025, as the impressive transfer portal class brought in a highly sought-after running back as well. The new addition is redshirt sophomore Quentin Joyner. He returned to the Lone Star State after 2 seasons at USC. As a Trojan, he played in 17 games, including all 12 regular season matchups last year. He was the second highest rusher for Lincoln Riley last season and has racked up 699 total yards and 5 career touchdowns. The Red Raider rushing attack has eclipsed the 2,000-yard mark 5 seasons in a row and 2,100 yards the last 3. It just might be a 3-headed monster that keeps those numbers going this fall.
Welcome back. Clint writes the scripts. I don't do that. That wasn't me. Though we do have the meats here in this room.
Are you an Arby's guy?
Yes. Yeah.
Me too.
You know my favorite thing about the Arby's?
Potato cakes.
It's that we have 3 of them, and they'll all be good for Texas Tech this year.
Oh!
Leading with Quentin Jordan, but you
Double
lose,
dip on the running back.
You lose a big...
Like a French dip.
You lose a big RB from last year with the beefy quads.
Could be running through Swiss cheese like holes.
Tahj Brooks. All right, that's enough.
Okay, sorry.
Tahj Brooks. Oh, you can say it's beef and cheddar because it was a big NIL deal that got him back. All right.
Before we get into who you added, another one that I just thought was interesting, his career was Cam Valdez. And I don't believe he's landed anywhere just yet, to my knowledge.
Yeah, he's been hurt. He just never broke through at Texas Tech. He had the one big game.
Houston,
against
111,
Houston, yeah.
Something like that.
And it was like 2 huge runs.
Yeah.
But beyond that, he just was either injured or behind Tahj Brooks.
Right. And
I hope he lands on his feet and starts running again.
Because I think,
but it just was not going to happen here.
I think when he's healthy, I think he could contribute to any roster in the Big 12, certainly. But the problem has been the health. And then, honestly, the last injury leads us to kind of leading into who you have this year, because it looked like Jacoby Williams was most likely going to redshirt, or he was at least in that conversation for the coaching staff. And then after he goes down in week 2, then you kind of have those cards dealt to you. And that leads us to the room that you have right now. So obviously you have Cam Dickey, you have Jacoby Williams, who were here last year. Rest of the offseason, the running back you add from the transfer portal is a big one, and Quentin Joyner. Let's start with Dickey and Williams. What did you think of them last year?
I would have been excited to have those two go into next year as 1-2. And for me, it would have been Williams, Dickey. With Williams being 1 and Dickey being 2. Because I think they're a real lightning and thunder kind of grouping, just respectively. It's generally thunder and lightning, but I said them backwards.
But technically you had that the right order, because lightning hits and then you hear thunder.
Right.
So
it should be lightning and
really
thunder.
You did it correctly.
It should be lightning and thunder. You're right. And we saw it in the bowl game. They were very good in the bowl game, and I thought Jacoby Williams looked better down the stretch, but Cam Dickey in his outings was also solid. And it looks like he can run through a bunch of tackles, and Williams looks like he can run around a bunch of tackles. And if those were your 2 lead backs this year, I would have been pretty excited about the room. It's funny, if you just asked me who had a better year, I would have said Williams. But I think they pretty much had the exact same year, right?
I mean, the exact same amount of carries. I mean, we saw it there in the little pre-video. Williams had a few more rushing yards. Big part of that was what he does in the bowl game. And, I mean, both had, I think Williams had 3 total touchdowns. Dickey had 2. Both had a receiving. Both had a rushing. They were really, I mean, as far as statistical output, were truly neck and neck. And I think given the same opportunity, Williams maybe got a little bit more when you add in special teams, because he takes over the kick return after Dre McCray starts dealing with injuries. And by the way, averaged just under 25 yards per return and had, just only the 3rd best kick return average in the Big 12, by the way. Granted, one that was in front of him was Dre McCray, but still,
right.
A couple that went 40 plus, one that went over 50. And I do think that number would have been higher had he been returning kicks the whole season. But at the same time, McCray was really good, so I'm not just like saying, oh, it should have been him. It's more of, okay, well, now this year, that's a very exciting part of his game. But from just total running back production, I think both were neck and neck. And I'm with you. I think when you are looking at highs and lows, I think in the regular season, the best look we got out of either of them was Jacoby Williams against TCU.
Yeah.
And comes in, just looks electric, and seamlessly fit in the offense. And I think immediately everyone went, okay, you have something here with Jacoby Williams. And I think you got to see that with Dickey earlier in the season, because most of his work was in the non-conference. Again, fairly quiet in Big 12 play.
Yeah. Well, I think you were trying to redshirt him, and then you just kind of forced your hand at the end.
And part of that with Dickey, too, is I think Williams maybe got a little more opportunity because Dickey was, of the 2 and of the 3 in the room this year, if you said who is the most like Tahj Brooks, I'm not saying he is Tahj Brooks, but who's the closest to his style, it's Cam Dickey. So I think maybe Williams got a little bit more because he can do some different things and give you a little bit of a change of pace. But even then, I mean, that the carries, touches, they were obviously just dominated by Brooks.
And yeah, it's just so few, and you really just saw flashes, but you weren't really allowed to see much more because Brooks was so dominant.
I will say there's 2 little things though that stood out to me, but maybe just weren't huge parts of the conversation. So because the big question around this is, how do you replace Brooks, and in what ways do you do that? For Williams, again, limited opportunity, but he had 12 opportunities in pass protection. Big thing for Brooks, right? Massive part of his game that he was so good at. No pressures allowed for Jacoby Williams. So that's certainly an encouraging stat early in that phase. For Cam Dickey, of his 272 yards total offense, 143 came after contact. And that's where you're talking about, obviously, was breaking contacts. Also, you know where his Pro Football Focus grade ranked amongst offensive Red Raiders last year?
Well, you're setting it up like it's a high one. 7th.
4th.
Okay.
Limited opportunities, but he was behind Brooks, Kelly, and Baron Morton for their grades.
Okay.
So again, limited opportunity, limited looks, but everything is going like when they had opportunities, I think they both made the most of it. And I think put enough on paper, but also just showed you things on the field when you got glimpses. And then the big look of life without Tahj Brooks against Arkansas, I mean, that was, even in a loss, again, I don't think took anything away from what they showed that they could do. So, and then you get to the new piece from USC, one Quentin Joyner. By the way, trio of Texas kids. So, fun little side note there for you.
Yeah.
2 from Austin. Joyner, I think, is his leaving of USC is really interesting. Because you look at the Trojans, and they've had back-to-back years with a running back drafted. His redshirt year, it was Marshawn Lloyd, who was a 3rd-round pick. And then last season, he was the 2nd option, played in all 12 regular season games behind Woody Marks, who when I looked this up, I think it was in the 4th-round pick. You think I would have written this down. But in the draft. And I think if I was a USC fan for old Lincoln Riley and company, I would have went, okay, well, Joyner will have 3 years of eligibility left, but he's obviously draft eligible after this season. He should be that next guy.
Yeah.
Now, he leaves, and for USC, they do add a 1,000-yard back in Eli Sanders from New Mexico, but I don't think it was him coming in of why he left. Part of it, I think USC was very, very mediocre. That's just what they've turned into. And I also don't think that's the case, because if it was like purely, I don't know if I'm going to get the same amount of carries, he wouldn't have came to the room that he did.
Right.
Because you're looking at a couple of other young guys that the coaching staff has made very clear that they're very high on. And, I mean, they've been talking about Cam Dickey and Jacoby Williams since last offseason. That was something McGuire, especially Cam Dickey, it felt like in the offseason, just hit over the head a lot and made it a point to bring up his name.
Yeah.
That's not going to be any different heading into this year. So that USC situation is different, but you're certainly benefiting from whatever happened there with USC.
Will you allow me to mix some metaphors here?
Please do.
Tahj Brooks last year hit about 500 baseball-wise singles and doubles, maybe 750. Just an outrageous contact percentage. Single, single, double, single, 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 double, double, single, single, double, double. These 3 running backs this year, Quentin Joyner namely, might hit closer to 300 or 250 or whatever else. But they're going to hit some home runs. They might strike out more than Tahj Brooks did and get a couple tackles for loss. But Joyner especially, who, if you calculate the stats in a certain way, led the Big Ten in yards per carry.
If you finagle the stats.
It's like a certain amount of carries to this many weeks in the season, but he was one of the best yards per carry guys in the Big Ten. Big play after big play. In the bowl game, both guys had big plays. Certainly Jacoby Williams and Quentin Joyner have big playability. I think you're going to see that from this offense more. I think in the passing game and the rushing game, big plays is going to be a focal point. And I think that's why you went and got Quentin Joyner. Because he is a home run threat out of the running back position. He can run, he can catch, and he can pass. Quentin Joyner, I really, really like his game.
I love that this group does feel like it might be, which is funny because you have 2 of the same pieces, but now it's like you know what you have, and it's a totally different mindset where these guys are going to be factors on offense, and then you add in Quentin Joyner. I think you might be more explosive at the running back spot.
Okay.
That's the word I'm going to start with.
I thought you were going better. I don't know if I'd go there, but
I think more explosive.
Certainly. Different.
I think
certainly.
Maybe even you could use the word a little more dynamic. Because I think that this group, and now part of this is you have a different offensive coordinator with Mac Leftwitch. And what's interesting about Leftwitch is, you know what's interesting? You know what's interesting about Leftwitch?
You want a donut?
It was supposed to be a balloon.
Oh, I thought you were doing
like
Jiminy Glick.
you know what's interesting about Mac Leftwitch? You know what I love about Mac Leftwitch? I just love that.
That's what I thought you were doing the first time.
For Leftwitch, his work with the quarterback position is the headliner, and I get it because I mean what he's accomplished with quarterbacks as an offensive coordinator and even as just a quarterbacks coach has been outstanding. Really, really, really good. But what's overshadowed is he loves to use the running back, and it's not just a running back. He likes to use running backs. So just look at the last couple of seasons at Texas State. He had a feature back in Ismail Mahdi. And Mahdi had at least 1,000 yards of total offense in 23 and 24. And in 2023, 1,600 total yards. And you go, man, okay, so he just sucked all the air out of the room, right? Well, still in that time, both seasons, the second option at running back had 95 or more touches. That's a lot. That's more than what you had by quite a bit. Last season, you had 2 other running backs with 70 touches and 62. That's feeding a lot of mouths. And that also includes the passing game, obviously. And last year, for his offense, running backs accounted for 2,641 total yards, 440 as receivers. 2023, similar numbers, 2,582, 414 in the passing game. I think all of this is going, okay, well, we've said how receiver and quarterback friendly his offense will be. It's going to be really running back friendly, and especially for the way that this room is set up with 3 guys who are ready to go. I think we're overlooking a little bit how good it's got to be a running back over there right now.
Yeah, we'll talk about offensive line next week, but I think the offensive line has also improved.
Yeah.
Last year's offense, a lot of times, felt like they were trying to get Tahj Brooks the rushing record. Now, they were trying to win football games.
Mm-hmm.
But there was also the comment, told them to open up the playbook against Oklahoma State. And then after Tahj got to 1,500, you see what you do against West Virginia. Now, are those just 2 bad teams? Or had Tahj reached the record and you got to have Zach Kidley's offense for the first 2 weeks in 3 years?
Yeah.
Like, what was it? They don't know. So I think, obviously, they're bad teams. I'm not trying to start a conspiracy theory here, but I think there was a little bit to it that you're really trying to focus on running the ball, and that's just, I think when you say dynamic with the type of athletes that Joyner and Dickey and Williams are, I think the offense could be more dynamic. It's not just going to be inside zone.
Mm-hmm.
You might see some 2-back sets. You might see, instead of just a tight end pull in as that backside tackle, you might see some true track and true counter. And I don't know. It felt like maybe Kitley was running the remember the Titans offense, 6 plays?
Mm-hmm.
It's like straight Novocaine, give it time, it works. Maybe have a few more formations and a little more dynamic attack in the running game, not just athletically, but...
Can we get a wheel route?
Yeah.
No one can stop it, apparently.
A wheel, a rail, whatever you want to call it.
It just popped up again last year. It's been ran for 2 decades.
And you got 3 that can do it.
Yeah.
2, really.
I'm excited to see what they do as home run hitters and then also just as consistent every down rushers. I am intrigued by the passing game, where they're used there. I mean, is it just, hey, they're getting some screen passes here and there, or is it, hey, we're running out, Jacoby Williams as a receiver out there, or hey, look at this 2-back set. I mean, just different things like that I'm very interested to see how Mac Leftwitch uses the chess pieces, if you will, on the board. So let me ask you this. I stayed away from it. Can this group be better than what you had last year?
I mean, what's better, 1,900 yards, 2,000 yards? Yeah, I think you can outdo that pace. Can you score a 40-yard touchdown on 4th and 1 twice? Can you do the getting the Can you get in the 1-back when everybody in the world knows you're running the ball and get 6 yards? Can you be clutch? Can you do those things? I don't know, but I think you can be more productive as a unit. I don't think anybody's getting 1,500 yards though.
Yeah, that's what, like, individually.
In the aggregate.
Same thing. I don't think just one running back is getting 17 rushing touchdowns and one receiving. I don't think either of those guys are getting 18 total touchdowns. But can you get I think it was 23 total from running backs? Yeah, I think you can.
And it might look a little different in the respect of, again, you could have a 5-6 yard per carry average, but it could be because you hit a 70-yarder in the game, and the rest of it's kind of mediocre. And
this is where I go. It's got to be exciting to know at any moment in the game, as long as they're all healthy, you can have fresh legs.
Yeah.
So you can be. It's not just something that Tahj Brooks was so good at, was just beating defenses down over time, and you're looking up late third quarter, early fourth quarter, and you're just dog tired, and he's still just hammering you. I think you can still have that sort of impact, because you could have a guy like maybe Cam Dickey who's in the third quarter and you're giving it to him, and he's maybe had 2 carries the whole game at this point, and you're going, okay, here you go. This one's yours. Go at him, kid. Like something like that. I think those are very believable situations, and kind of something I expect is to have those three guys so much in the mix that you have fresh legs or as fresh as can be anyways, at any moment in the game.
Yeah, it's going to be big.
So, last year, the running backs in the Big 12 were ridiculously good.
Yeah.
I thought it was the year of the running back. I thought it was the final staple that, the Big 12, in case you didn't know, it hasn't been this way for a while, but the Big 12 isn't just these aired out offenses everywhere you look, like still is described by every play-by-play guy ever when they
Just
haven't watched
some classic
the
Big 12 football.
Yeah. Which kills me, by the way.
Yeah.
But last year, I mean, all of the guys that went to the draft, Tahj Brooks included in that room, big names like R.J. Harvey and D.J. Giddens and Devin Neal, Corey Kiner, just keep
I think there were 6 off the board before Tahj went.
Yeah, and in total, you lost all of these heavy hitters, and it was like going into the season, I think all of these running backs are going to be really good, and every single one delivered in their own way. But then you look after it, and those were a lot of returning guys, and you have so many new faces at the running back spot. Where do you think that Tech's room lines up in the Big 12?
I am probably higher on Arizona State's than most. I think Baylor is up there as kind of a 1-2, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
But I would certainly put Texas Tech in the top 8 of running back rooms, if not the top 5. I don't know. I'd really have to dig into it, but I really like L.J. Martin at BYU. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Ishmael earlier at Texas State. Well, he's an Arizona Wildcat now. And they have, 1,400 yards returning. But, I mean, Kansas, I think, is falling off a little bit without Devin Neal. I don't think there's a big gap at all between Scadaboo and Kanye Ude, who they bring in from Army.
Which, by the way, they're also bringing back Kyson Brown, who was a good running back last year for him.
I'd probably put them number 1. I'd probably put BYU in the top 5. I think I would put Baylor in the top 2. Kansas State, you just kind of have to put in there out of respect. So what, Texas Tech 5? You don't like Dylan Edwards?
I think he's fine. I think DJ Giddens was really, really good. And I think what's unfair for that rushing attack is, not unfair for the rushing attack. The running back room looks a lot better when you have Avery Johnson as the quarterback because the rushing attack is outstanding with him, right? And he's the best rushing quarterback, or at least in the conversation in the Big 12. Dylan Edwards, I need to see a little bit more out of. I think he can be really good.
I just respect the run game.
They had another really interesting addition from like Southeast Louisiana. That's kind of a wild card. He was like a 1,300-yard back or something at Southeast. But again, you're going lower level. How do those? And there's a few guys in the Big 12 that are like that. But I think their running attack is going to be fine. But if you went like, who do I think are the best rooms in the Big 12 just at the running back spot? I'm with you on Baylor. I think Bryson Washington could be the best running back in the conference. But someone where you didn't bring up, but I was curious if you would, they have a old new coach in Jaheim White over at West Virginia in Morgantown.
Yeah, they'd probably be my top 5, 6,
They also added an SMU running back, Jalen Knighton, who led their squad 2 years ago. I think only played 2 or 3 games in last year's team and then entered the transfer portal. So West Virginia is very interesting. But I think my top 2 are Baylor and Iowa State. Because Iowa State, their platoon, outside of one player who was the worst of the 3, came back.
Oh, yeah.
Carson Hansen and Abu Sama.
Oh, yeah. Iowa State. Okay, hold on.
They're really good.
Yeah. Baylor, Arizona State, Iowa State. In some order. Mm-hmm. Top 3. Is that what you're saying? And then West Virginia.
Yeah.
Top 4, some order.
I had forgotten Mahdi went to Arizona, so that's what I'm
Yeah, but I don't think they have much behind him. Utah got 2 running backs transferring in that were there.
They have
Washington State.
Wayshawn Parker,
Yep.
who was a freshman. See, this is what's interesting because you have some guys like with Arizona State, when you bring in Udo, who's got these stats to back it up, but then some of it like that, like with Utah, you're doing some projection, and that's obviously what you're doing with Texas Tech too. So it's like just how confident are you? I think in the end, and this is where Quentin Joyner is a big addition, can be a top 5. Absolutely can be a top 5 group. I'm with you. I think they're solidly a top 8 group right now. I think they can be a top 5 group.
Yeah.
On how they hit. Part of it also is, okay, well, how much weight do you put into those lead guys? Like L.J. Martin, it's hard to tell in the room around him at BYU.
Sure.
But he's going to be a solid back this year. And I think Dylan Edwards at Kansas State is going to be a solid back, but what else is around him with running backs and how do those guys hit, which is really, really interesting. And that's where I go, you had so many known players last year, and they all hit. And now it's like UCF, who I don't think is going to be very good this year, but they had Jaden Nixon over there, formerly at Oklahoma State, has a great year at Western Michigan.
Yeah. What
do they do? And then another one to me is Cincinnati. They're replacing an underrated back in Corey Kiner, who was on a very, very average to below average team. It's kind of we did this with quarterbacks, and I think I'm a little bit higher on Sorsby than maybe other people are. I'm not saying he's going to be a top 3 quarterback or anything like that, but that's what Corey Kiner, I don't think, got a lot of respect because their teams weren't very good, and I understand that. But they have a Wisconsin transfer who has over 800 yards last year. They also have Evan Pryor, who had over 400. So that's 1,400 yards close to their of returning production. And so then you go, okay, well, how do they mesh with the coaching staffs? What do their offensive lines look like? And that's when you start doing these outside factors other than, I think these 2 or 3 guys are more talented than these 2 or 3 guys. And that's what's hard to tell about the Big 12 right now, because that is just so the all conference spots, especially when you add in first and second team together, I think are wide open.
It'll be very interesting. At some point this summer, I guess next month, when we're wrapping up the defensive episodes, we could put out a Big 12, all Big 12 preseason poll, and an all Big 12 preseason team that the media picks. And I don't know who in the world I would put 1, 2. I really like Abu Sama, but I don't know that he'll start or play. Have the most carries at Iowa State.
Well, because I'm with you. I think Carson Hansen might get more work.
And it could be 2 white running backs again, and Pendergrass at Baylor and Hansen at Iowa State. So, I don't know.
Yeah. If you had to, off the top of your head, say these are going to be the preseason, say 2 running backs for the Big 12, who would they be? Maybe who you think they should be, and who you expect them to be.
I expect Baylor's running back Chase Kimball's a wide receiver.
Friendships in Bryson Washington.
What's the Baylor wide receiver's name though? Who's also coming back? Number 35. Anyways, Bryson Washington I think would be up there, just based on media pollage this offseason. I think people highly respect him. It'd be interesting to see Army's Udo get up there. But I'd probably go with somebody from...
You kind of rolled your eyes. I don't know if you meant to or not. When I said Jaheim White.
West Virginia is in such a weird spot for me.
Sure, but I think him individually, I think he'll still get his numbers. So that's where I think he could be on there.
I would not be surprised at all to see Jaheim White as the preseason second running back. No, I wouldn't. You're right.
Yeah.
I rolled my eyes more at not Jaheim White, but at...
I didn't even say Daniel Highshaw or LaShawn Williams at Kansas.
As a whole. Where did... Is it true... First of all, what's that kid's name? Corey Campbell? Now I'm mixing up. That's Corey Coleman. I'm mixing up Baylor wide receivers now.
Mm-hmm. There's Josh Cameron.
Josh Cameron.
There you go. I was like,
Josh Cameron. He's number 35. Receiver?
34.
34.
You were right there.
Okay. I could ace the Texas Tech quiz, and I'm doing a Texas Tech podcast, but I guess I need to study up on Baylor. Anyways, I wouldn't be surprised to see Gene White up there. Not at all. Udo, I would be surprised to see up there, I think, just coming in from Army. I would be surprised to see any of the Texas Tech running backs up there.
Yeah, I would too.
But there's several transfers coming in, like Mahdi. Does he get the respect out of Texas State because he was a 900-yard rusher?
Well, and like how much weight do you give L.J. Martin? Because
L.J. Martin as a
returner, who was a returning solid year,
700-800 yards
last year,
sure,
but not just these huge numbers. I think we both agree on Bryson Washington.
Yeah,
that he's going to be one. Maybe three or four guys that could be the second spot.
And it's like Baylor did that last year, and everyone was productive. But you look at Iowa State, who you voting for, or who's number one?
Yeah, I think everything that everything that I've looked at would be leaning towards Hansen, which I don't think necessarily is saying, oh, he's the better of between him and Abu Sama. Because
going into last year, Abu Sama was the guy.
Yes, and so I'm just going off of what I think people are leaning towards and what's coming out of Iowa State, but at the same time, no one's saying like, well, it's going to be, Carson Hansen's the true one, and then we'll see what Abu Sama gets. Like, that's still going to be, even if it is he's going to get more, it's going to be like, I don't know, 55 Hansen, 45 Sama at its biggest separation there. So that'll be interesting. Any more thoughts you would like to round up on the running back room?
I think very highly of Texas Tech's running back room. I don't know that anybody else will, but that could lead to some surprises.
To that conversation, I don't think if you start seeing, this summer we start getting position group rankings and stuff like that, I don't know if the outside media will be kind, and I honestly don't expect them to be that kind in the rankings. But part of that is because you don't have a guy that has put up numbers yet, and it seems like for the most part the teams I expect in front of you will have had someone like that, whether they're returning or from some of the guys we've talked about coming in through the transfer portal. I think that will change by the end of the season. So what I'm saying is I'm warning you to buckle up if you're one that, is a ride or die with preseason projections and rankings and stuff like that. And if you see that, don't all of a sudden buy into that and start panicking and go, we don't have the running backs we thought. It's just hard, for those guys to project.
Wouldn't be shocked to see him at 12.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. Yeah. Let's get to the fan question of the week. You can hit us up with one on Twitter. You can tweet at either of us. Josh will put up our names as always in front of us. You can also tweet double T973. Just make sure to put in Red Raider Recon with it, or we won't know who it's for. This week with the running backs, we had this question: will Joyner leave for the draft next year?
Eventually, yeah. This year, no, I don't think so. I don't think he's a one and done at Tech. He could be, certainly. What would it take for him to be a top 3 round? Because I think he has youth on his side. Mm-hmm. And I think he has the skill set that matches more closely the NFL, what they want today, more so than Tahj Brooks. If it was 20 years ago, Tahj Brooks would have been a first rounder. But I think Joyner is more NFL molded. So if he gets, 1,200 yards this year? He'd go in the draft first round?
So this is interesting, and I think this question is stemming because there was, I assume anyways, he got from PFF the 5th best running back projection from draft eligible guys. Now, I don't know if that was necessarily them saying, like, yeah, we think he's going to go after this, or if it was more of, which I think it was, like, if he were to leave. And
Right.
it was a top 8, and every single guy outside of C.J. Baxter, Texas, were 1,000-yard rushers. Just everywhere. Both guys at Penn State were there. And he was really one of these things, it's not like the other, just because it was the unknown for the most part, other than, the window that you talked about there in Big Ten play where he looked really good and was getting more and more carries. And there's a reason why when he went in the portal, everyone that needed a running back kind of went like, oh, okay. And you were lucky enough and did enough work to get him. I don't think he'll leave after next year. But if, what would it take for him to? I think in my mind right now, before we've seen it down, I went, oh man, that guy's gone. I think it's closer to like Brooks' numbers from last year. I think it's like just a ridiculous season, and everyone's going, man, you really have to capitalize up. There's no way you do this again, right? You got to go now. You're going to make all this money. I think he would get some of that conversation around some of the numbers you said, but I just don't think it would be for sure locked. And on the other side, I think either way, when you have a guy that has 3 years of eligibility and has just this uber high ceiling, the staff Coach McGuire has done a very good job of like, hey, we want what's best for the player, but at the same time, this just goes exactly into keeping Brooks last year going, we'll make it worth your while.
Yeah.
We will make this a comfortable place to stay.
In the NFL, to be drafted, you either have to be a freak athletically, he is, or be uber productive. He's not yet been. But if you can be kind of in the center of that Venn diagram and be moderately productive and a freak, some NFL team will be like, you know what? If he wasn't at Texas Tech, right? If he was in our system. So I would not be shocked to see any of the running backs drafted after year one, but it would take probably 1,000 yards, and I think you might see all three of them with 800.
That's what's closer to where my mind is. And, for the running back spot in the NFL, obviously that's been a position contract-wise that's been devalued, but I think is on the way up. It's not going to clearly not going to catch quarterback. I don't think it'll catch receiver anytime soon or offensive tackle. And obviously then you go to the other side of the ball and you have like pass rushers who are in on that money-making conversation. But I do think it's working its way back up. And I think a big sign was this year how they were drafted. So many running backs. Let's just say if he were to be, he leaves and he's the 5th running back taken off the board, that would have been in the 2nd round this year. So, I mean, that's a very appealing spot to go for a running back. So I hope he has that decision to make. I hope they're going, yeah, you killed it and you looked the part. But I don't think he'll be gone just after next year.
Agreed.
That's going to do it for us here on this episode for the running backs of Raider Recon. Next week, I know you're excited. I'm excited. It's the big uglies. It's the hog mollies. We're going to talk some offensive line. We'll see you next Thursday. What do what did his legacy mean to you in what he accomplished in his career?
I think when you talk about unbreakable records for Texas Tech, I think Graham Harrell, who's going into the Ring of Honor, shout out,
October.
His career passing yards are way out of bounds. I don't know that anybody can get there. Now, if you have like a 5-year starter at quarterback that's getting to 3 or 4, maybe he gets there eventually, but I think Graham Harrell just said 15-6, 15-7. And I think Tahj Brooks is right there with him. In today's world of college football, A, people don't stay in one place for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And B, I don't know. I don't think. I mean, it's the first time ever Texas Tech has a rich history of running backs that anybody ever got 1,500 in back-to-back seasons.
I think in the end, the numbers obviously are what they are and were record-setting, and I agree with you. I think it's going to be, yes, the total number, the career one, I don't know if it'll ever be broken, but the one that you just mentioned, back-to-back 1,500 yards, that just seems, I don't know, it feels impossible just because you just don't have that many types of rushing seasons. And unless in 5-10 years something went drastically wrong and all of a sudden you're bringing in a new staff and it's a much different offense, and also you have to have the right guy, and like you said, you have to have that production for multiple seasons. I think that is something that won't be touched. Can it be sniffed though? I also don't know that. But I think, Tahj Brooks in the end, he was just always good. He had moments where he was really special, moments where he was just, blow your mind, crazy great, but he was just always good. You had that worry of the off season. Could you get him back? And he does come back. And I don't know what she would have looked like last year without him. I'm excited to see how it's replaced this year, but just from the offense, I don't know what kind of season you would have had if you weren't able to get him back. Obviously, you probably would have looked in the transfer portal for a different back, but still, it's a guy that in the end, it was a focal point, right? But it didn't hinder the offense. It was a focal point to get the record. You had the website, you had all the stuff that we know about and watched all last year, but it works. And in the end, he's now a guy that is going to try to make his case to play on Sundays, and also a guy that is clearly in the discussion for the best Texas Tech running back of all time.
Think about the top 5 offensive plays from Texas Tech last year.
Okay.
Tahj Brooks is 3, 4 of them?
At least 3. Because I'm going to, there's
touchdown against Iowa State.
Some big, and then there's another big pass play in Iowa State that I don't think that leads to a scoring drive. Of course, I think that led to a Tahj Brooks score.
Yeah, the go-ahead touchdown was Tahj Brooks.
So, it's hard. It's hard not to. I think Tahj Brooks, one thing, though, that goes into his description at Tech is workhorse. And then I think that works against him from the NFL standpoint, just because that was such a huge knock for him in his draft grade, but is very much appreciated, because that was just like, there's, he lost a lot of the tread on the tires, and then there's a big thing with speed. Can he make up with pass block, and all the stuff we saw as experts just knock him down. But I think he's a guy that can carve out a very nice career in the league. It's a good spot in Cincinnati. It's going to feel pretty good to be on that offense.
Decent spot.
I think it's a good spot.